Lee Woodward, welcome to Business Insider.
Thank you.
At the lovely Milestone Bellanova boardroom. We thank them for their facilities here. Tempted to say almost an overnight success. Man, you've been doing this for 20 years. The Real Estate Academy. At what point did that, because you started life as a real estate agent, incredibly successful.
I did.
And then you moved on to your strengths, the selling and the training.
Yeah, it was by accident originally. Like, I was a top-line real estate salesperson for the country, but back then the management style of companies didn't have profit shares or bringing partners in. If you owned a business back then, it was your baby. So as you grow up in a business and you're the top performer, you're teaching others, you're growing all the time, but then there's nowhere to go. And I think one of the most frightening things is in business is not the money side of it, that can be generated, but it's when you start to lack stimulation in what you do. And with no chance of taking over that business or managing or being part of it, I couldn't just go out and do my own thing. And many people in my position usually open up down the road as a competitor to their principal. I couldn't do that. He was my mentor, trained me. It was like a family I worked for. So I didn't have a culture option of running my own real estate practice in the same geographical area where I was brought up by that principal. And just by chance, I was asked to do a talk. I wasn't a trainer. There's a lot more to being a trainer than being a speaker. And that talk was a national sellout. And it was how do you win business, listing presentations, which is one of the big parts of the real estate space. So when I did that tour, and it was a sellout, there was an interest of what does a practitioner do versus a trainer? Now all these years later, I've learnt the art of training or teaching for understanding, as we use as our model, and it's become a completely different occupation in the knowledge that I had in the real estate space.
Is it real estate focused, or I would think you could speak on conversion to anyone?
Yeah, selling's a model. I didn't realise that back then. You do a lot of things in your first couple of years completely by accident. The fact I didn't know a lot about real estate, people liked. You don't seem like a typical real estate agent. You seem really open, you're helpful. So I was doing all these things right without knowing what I was doing. Then when I started to really hit the top numbers in the country, I hit the top 2% in Australia for agents. It was only then I stopped and thought, what is it that I am doing? Because it's obviously having an effect on the marketplace.
So was it taught or was it natural, do you think? Did your mentor say this is the way you must do it, or?
I came from a training office. We would train every 6 weeks, whereas the average person wouldn't do more than 4 or 5 a year. Every 6 weeks I was put through either audio learning or conferences. And that was probably one of the first moments. I would go to a conference and notice none of my competitors were there. And it'd be a national conference or a conference in Sydney. And I think that's interesting. With all this knowledge available, why is there no hunger to learn? And I learned a lot about hunger and then attaching good knowledge, because there's lots of training out there, but you've got to make sure it connects to your model and what you want to do. And I became very quick at.
So how do you measure that? How do you say, hey, this is a piece that fits?
A piece of the puzzle that fits, testing it. So for me, it was going out into lounge rooms and trying it a couple of different ways, failing a few, and then having a breakthrough. So I remember one of my major competitors who was very difficult to beat, and then beating him and then not losing for 3 months in a row. And you think, okay, that change has made the difference. That's a game changer. But I wasn't doing that. But when you're being beat all the time by someone who's been around 15, 20 years longer than you can't just keep going the same way. You've got to break it apart. But most people don't do that. They'll say, well, that's just the way it is. And they don't think of, well, what would I need to do next in order to get that all together?
And as a complete aside, we're talking about retail and the dilemma of retail on the Central Coast. You know, it's our largest sector, you know, when we wrap hospitality into it. The translation of that I guess, client or customer experience. You know, do we do enough of that at the retail level? Because you can transfer what you're talking about here into retail, can't you?
I think retail's dropped the ball big time. They've got the results they deserve at the moment. That's a very hard comment.
I think it's very
But there used to be
comment.
some great people in retail. You could go and buy a pair of shoes and learn so much about shoes and brands and what was available. Now we have kids serving who are on a cheap rate and don't care if you buy shoes or not.
And forcing people to the internet.
Why not? Because that would save me time. So retail thought, we'll save money on labour and there'll be more profit. The bank did it too. We don't need someone to have a conversation. We'll get home loan people's going out to them, we'll save money there. You can't beat the skill of someone who can communicate. Selling is a transference of feelings. So a 17-year-old kid selling business shoes to someone like me, I'm on my feet all day. I need a great pair of shoes in order to do my job. It's not just about fashion. And there's certain types of shoes that allow you to have that comfort. But the product knowledge has gone in retail. The people selling the products don't know what the product does, and they don't know the strengths of the product. So training is a massive issue in retail, but they shouldn't have let go of the mature people who enjoyed retail.
Do you go into the retail area and train, or?
We don't.
No.
The real estate industry is enormous. We scratch about 10% of it.
Okay. There's more than enough there for you to keep you occupied.
Well, our team of 10 is flat out communicating, educating and marketing to that sector. If we were to go to another space, there'd be a dilution that would affect us as a business. I think it's what you say no to, especially when you've been around a while, that makes you versus being too wide in what you do and being nothing to anyone.
Let's progress that down the path. 20 years to here in your real estate experience. 5 years, what do you think is going to have to change in your business at the moment to keep growing and keep having fun, which obviously you're doing?
Our business now will change with the partnering opportunities. You can't conquer the world by yourself. So we've built a talent team of 10 people that can deliver training. This week I've been to Perth, Adelaide, Sydney and Melbourne tonight. So we can get round. Our choice now is, do we speak to 50 people or do we speak to 5,000 people? But I can still do that with the same team. It'll be the adjacent partners to us or the people who invest in what we do, meaning we want this model. So a brand could say, we want to buy this model for the whole of the American market. And we're able to facilitate that because after 20 years, we've been very good at capturing and storing the knowledge management that can be replicated within a model. Unfortunately, a seminar ends, whereas our audio learning library has been going for 10 years now. We've done thousands of interviews on every single topic, and we can now cross that into topic specific, where people can type in a few words and have a 15-minute answer. So learning on the fly will be a big part of what we do in the future versus an 8-hour conference, which is wonderful, that's an experience. But when you get back into the office, our next thing coming out is how do I?
Yeah.
So how do I?
The translation of that experience into day-to-day stuff.
Exactly. So they might type in, how do I close an appointment? And up comes a 15-minute audio with the actual words, the method, the strategy all there, and I think I could do that today. And I think learning in short, sharp moments is what people appreciate.
Okay. You mentioned the US. Does Robin let you go international?
We go international. Yeah. We've been over to the States to check it out. And that's the very thing, I think understanding the territory. We went to a conference over there with 15,000 people. But no offence to the States, they were like 10 years behind the stuff we were teaching here now. So our product would be way ahead of time for the moment. But if there was a training company like us over there that wanted to merge us into that market, we have the library, which is their next library. But the things they were talking about, we were doing a long time ago, yet they were still excited about that, which is wonderful. Now they have a different model in the States to the Australian model. We have to make individual businesses really survive quickly, whereas they can spread it out a little bit wider with multiple people working from home. Now that model's not big here in Australia.
Indeed, indeed. The real estate industry, is it transforming itself? You know, you look at and say, I don't necessarily, as a consumer of real estate services, I don't necessarily see a big change in the way you present, the way the real estate industry presents themselves now, or is that just my age? And just be gentle here.
No, I think you're right. The outside look at real estate is still the same. There's a property available, I need to communicate with someone, I need to inspect it, I've got to go through legal transactions, and then suddenly I'm the owner of it. Behind the scenes of that is definitely becoming more sophisticated. The real estate industry has been quite loose in its business practice for a long period of time, meaning if it sells, you've got away with it, you're on to the next one, that's real estate. Most people come from not a great background.
That's why they don't like you, they say you are different. The getting away with it, is that phrase there says where they've been. And we're really talking about an ongoing relationship, or I get the feeling you're talking about, once
Yeah.
you've sold to that person once, you're talking about the long-term relationship.
For sure. So, one of the big things we introduced in the industry was database management. Now, database management's been around forever, but how it's done with established clients and the recipes and methods we put against that. So our new agents coming in now are earning far better incomes in a more sophisticated business way than not a typical real estate agent. You've got to be a better business person today to represent people in those transactions, whereas in the past, that wasn't so under the microscope as it is now. But the internet changed that. You can find out everything you need to know on the internet right now. The agent used to be the gatekeeper of information. That has ended. You can get on Google, you can go on top of a rooftop and look at the pricing of it. So having the agent come out to inform you of that, that's modified. Our consumers far more educated than ever.
And sophisticated and comfortable with that.
Very much so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is a market comment now, we seem to still be sustaining a significant range of real estate offices around the country. They're probably taken over from service stations in terms of just the footprint they have. Are we going to see that level of exposure, or are the number of real estate agents going to decline?
There's two views on that. About 5 years ago, the big brands thought the super office would take over the market, where you got 200 agents sitting in a high rise doing a big geographical area. That was attempted and failed badly. And it failed badly on a culture level. And I've got a strong view on this in business, but teams below 10 are effective. As soon as you break 10, there's a different communication strategy. Now you can have 30 people in 3 groups of 10. But
And you've maintained that contact,
But as soon as you go to 50, 150, 200, the tentacles get too far out, and that delivery of service and standards plummets.
It's about the tribe mentality too, isn't it? You know who you're a member with.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And still today's consumer buys off people, not brands. So if you and I have been chatting for 6 or 7 months, you want me to sell your house. You don't actually really care which brand I'm from, as long as I look after your family needs and I communicate with you and I protect that asset within a marketplace that's going to result in profit for you. But if I was First National, Ray White, McGrath, it doesn't really matter, because the relationships between you and I, and that's the brand that I'll be using for the marketing theme of it.
It smacks of a paid endorsement, but do you look at the market and say, I think these 2 or 3 groups are doing it well?
Not really. I'm quite the reverse of that. In the real estate industry, I represent the salespeople and the agents on the floor. Where they choose to work is completely up to them. And some of my bigger teams might have 250 salespeople. My smallest teams are 1. But to me, it's the same process in the market of real estate. I don't care how big the organisation is. I care how that delivery is done to the consumer. Consumer's king in our space, but the brands
Who's your consumer? Is your consumer your salesman?
Yes, that's my core client for sure.
Yeah.
Especially in some larger brands, they have people like me in-house that do the training. There's a difference between in-house and outsourced training. Like obviously, we've got to study 6 different laws. We're not just in one place. We've got to look at all brands, all methods, all states. Like Perth, training this week was completely different to Adelaide. Same process, but Perth doesn't do auction. Adelaide does. So how we're delivering that information needs filtering. And I think a lot of people come to trainers like us or our organisation because they can download that variety of colour that we get to see, that quite often you get store blind in the one place.
How do you choose your team? You've got a resource of 10.
Yep.
That presumably most could fill that itinerary you've just worked through: Perth, Adelaide, Melbourne, Brisbane, Sydney. Are they specialists or are they state specialists? Or I'll go back to my original question. I should stay focused, shouldn't I? Tell me about how you choose your people.
Most of my people come to me in some sort of way or fashion. Like there's a couple of people that started in the original team. They've been there 11, 12 years now. So they're organically grown through the business. They think our way. We have our own business model for running the business, which is very specific. And we like that people have no formal training to learn that. And we've got 21-year-olds now learning that model that by 27, 28 could run the organisation, because it is a model. Whereas I've had outside university management people come to me, and it's been a disaster. You know, they've got all the jargon, but not the behaviour that we need in a small, effective business. We're probably more street smart than that. People say you're intelligent or sharp. We're probably sharp more than intelligent, but it's very easy to study cash flow at uni, but you come work in a business that needs enormous cash flow. Like, I'll give an example of that. What finishes a business is people, rent and debt. The rent for us is astronomical. People think, oh, they pay $50,000 a year to rent their premises. We can pay $50,000 a day in a hotel. So when you're doing 100 events, our rent for the year, and you talk about cash flow, and they all want 50% up front, is serious money going out. Example, last year, we booked a very big hotel for Brisbane, big market for us, but the floods hit. So where we think 200 people are turning up, 80 people turn up, there's a lot of schnitzel left over on that day that you still got to fund and pay for. There is no refund in that space. So cash flow and risk management for us is enormous. But the other side of that is no one can follow you that easy because it's too risky. Oh, you just wouldn't get into that business, it's too risky. That can also keep the competitor out. You'd really want to be on top of your game to be running cash flow levels of that risk.
To sustain that,
Versus, what's going out this month, we should be okay with that. That's safe. This is far from safe, this game.
Indeed. The expansion is going to be based on great people, obviously, and I get the impression this is from the ground up rather than you sitting on the top saying you do stuff. They come up with ideas, presumably. Is that the...
Very much so. We have a flat structure, and I'll explain that. In business, you've got to decide if you're front end or back end. I'm actually a front end worker. I don't like running the business, so I have a business manager. But the business manager is not the person who cracks the whip and is in charge. It's actually support style management. It's like a reverse PA for the team. So the team's all on one level doing their specialist part. The business manager serves them, not in reverse. And he's implementing my vision of what I want done through the team. And I think that structure works really well. I completely dislike general managers. They generally don't do a lot. But they
generally don't.
They don't. It's a very old-fashioned way of working it versus a business manager. You've got to have some skin in the game and be working with your team. Your team's going to give you the result. You're going to go missing if I don't get my result. So you must support that structure backwards. Versus in the past, we've had that hierarchy structure, and that doesn't work in bringing young people through a business.
It's a great model. You look at industries and say, hey, that model, because you're at an intellectual property level of saying, hey, this is a great service delivery process that you've created here. Do you ever get tempted to go out and talk about that? Because architects or any other service provider, I'm thinking, could work on that model?
Yeah, they could. Probably, I don't want to sound wrong in this, the fee we get paid to speak to the real estate industry has a respect level to it. I'm probably 5 times the cost of a normal speaker in their industry. Like they can see a speaker for $2,000, meaning if you bring a public speaker in. We're not that, but because we have so much knowledge in the real estate industry, it'd be very easy for an outsider to say, why would we pay a speaker's fee of that level? Whereas in the real estate industry, they say, we're paying for 20 years of his time to fix this problem we have right now. And they're investing in my research than they are my speaking ability. So outside industries, we wouldn't have that depth of knowledge. Other than business management skills and marketing, I think we could definitely show people how to market.
Yeah, and in that outcomes area, when your people come along and buy 20 years of your experience, are they automatically, they're getting the opportunity to purchase the webisodes or the audio tapes or whatever? I'm presuming that's separate to your day and the...
Oh, for sure. So
Hyatt or wherever.
This week, great example. We've done talks all over the country where people are paying tickets to see us. We've done some membership workshops where people are on a reoccurring membership program with us and they get access to all areas. And the membership programs, our research and development, their next need, next question fascinates me because that's what we'll build next. And we have a full request. What do you need? And we'll build it for you. And I think that's another difference in having a good business. 2 points. One, the leader must be connected to the marketing. I know a lot of business owners that say, oh, I get someone to do that for me and I keep out of that. Big mistake. Now, I'm flat out, but I'm still very, very heavily involved in the direction of the marketing and where that will
go. More important, you are in the market. You are standing up in front of that market, a couple of times a week. That's a cool place.
Well, the word CEO is like Chief Energy Officer. It needs a new word, because unless the business energy comes from the leader, the business manager can't
it's got nothing to work with.
Get that through to the team to get the result that we're heading for.
Okay.
So it's a very important thing.
You're a driven man. Work-life balance, not a problem?
It's a difficult one. Like, I work Monday to Friday, but I did a 20-hour day yesterday. We can do 3 states in one day. Very often for me to wake up in Sydney, work in Melbourne, go to bed in Brisbane, because the next day will be in Brisbane. So when it's on, it's on.
Yeah.
Don't work weekends, so I get that time back. But Monday to Friday is very full on.
Okay, that's cool. Do you work your people as hard as you work?
No, I work harder than anyone, and I think that's an important thing for a leader. I'm not on the golf course 3 days a week. I've never understood that. I don't do automatic pilot management of a business. I don't agree with that either. I think you've got to be in there with the team. And when they see you, well, this is an important point. Time's one thing in a business. Effectiveness is another. Like, I see some people that say I work 80 hours a week. You're not committed, you're ineffective.
I like your energy word. Energy can be positive and negative. You can be in a hurricane and it can be energetic, but if you're focused, that's what you need.
Well, how many business owners get upset at their team? And I've got lots of friends that run businesses, but I'll bring them up sometimes and say, so what have you completed this month? What's your big winning, game-changing moment for the company? And they'll go, I haven't done really anything. I said, so you're a liability. Here you are wanting this out of them, but you don't complete stuff. You don't. If I've got one great skill, I can deliver and finish projects. So if I say I'm going to do one, everyone knows this will happen. It's not, they say stuff all the time, but it's not going to, no, it will happen.
It will happen.
And it will be there on time, and it'll be at a certain standard. Not saying it's all done in easy hours, but I think that's a signal. You've got to know how to separate the noise from the signal when you run a team. So many businesses are full of noise, but the signal is we're going this way, and I think that's missing.
Lee, talking about the organisation, people discuss transparency. It's not that important, is it?
It's crucial. In a small business, and especially when you've got revenues coming through every day, it's very easy for staff members to think, geez, you're doing well, and they have no idea of the struggle of not making a profit for 6 to 7 years, the cost of getting a new business off the ground, the expense of creating an environment and infrastructure that could take the revenues you want to do for the future.
So what does that mean? Do you share those numbers?
Beyond.
Okay.
Our business has verticals. So many businesses talk about their cash flow pipeline. We have a vertical of events, audio, software, and education. So each of those contribute different funds each day into the main pipeline. In our beautiful plasma kitchen, where everyone meets and uses the coffee machine and chats, and we have meetings around the plasma. It's an informal way of, you can call it the loud room if you like, everyone's going to hear what you're talking about. I like that. But there's a plasma running dollars per minute. So before coming in here today, it could be on $17,312 today. But everyone in that business knows we are $10,000 a day break even. For all these staff, all these premises, all these photocopies, all these manuals, all the stuff we do, we're at 10K break even. So if we're at $7,000 and it's 4 o'clock and everyone's about to leave at 5, that's not the greatest moment in a day. And I'll flick the plasma and think, is there something wrong with this thing? Or
it's jammed or something.
But it makes everyone from our 17-year-old trainee right through to top-end management know, we all know the score. Are you contributing? And there's a point. Everyone in your business is either adding or subtracting. But when they don't know the numbers, they will make it 4 times greater than what it is. And Australian business for many years has this embarrassment that you're not allowed to make a profit. Who said that? It's crazy. Why can't a business, if a business makes profit, it can contribute back to its people. If it's always near on the
Where does that come from, Lee?
From not making a profit first. I think when you...
Is there guilt though? I get some of my clients, they strike me as almost being guilty about what they're sharing or what they're not sharing, and therefore they'd rather hide it all.
I think it's part of your personality.
Yeah.
Guilt's a useless negative emotion. But if you ever want a team to dig in around you, like, for example, we'll sometimes do a productivity blast on the phones. And that pretty much means this: we don't care who you are in this place, we're all hitting the phones, we need to generate revenue by Wednesday. So from now, the events managers say, look, I'm not keen on phones. Get on the phone. We're all getting on the phone. That's what you do around here. You can't just say, oh, it's not my job. We'll miss you around here. Like, we're all doing this today. And I think culture comes from transparency. I think hiding it in the boardroom and don't let anyone know this and don't let anyone know that and no one needs to know that is completely wrong. And I don't think people want to work for a business like that. I want the 17-year-old to understand the numbers so they can go, wow, our audio vertical contributes this vertical contributes that. What if the next 21-year-old thinks, I want to run vertical 1? I could run that business unit as a manager in here. Well, now we've got career paths in 4 different methods versus you don't need to know about that stuff.
No. Okay, that's cool. There are other opportunities, and you've just embraced, or relatively recently embraced, hard copy magazine.
Yeah, Real Estate Hot Topics, the audio has been around for a decade, we're now 11th year now, but the magazine came out as a complete error. There was actually a company that we were advertising in as a magazine, and we put an ad in one day for them and the ad was wrong. And I rang up and said, look, this is not right. And it was pretty much so what? Speak to the CEO. And I spoke to the CEO and that didn't go well either. And I'm not good with stuff like that. So I said, stuff it, we'll do our own magazine. And my events manager, who's actually my wife as well, said, don't do it. Don't, it's Christmas. I said, no, we're doing a magazine. So next thing, we launch a full gloss colour magazine called Real Estate Hot Topics, the magazine. And it wasn't as hard as we thought. We had a quick learning curve to do it. I then rang some very big industry suppliers and didn't say, would you like to advertise? I said, you're going to need to advertise in this, we need your support. But some big players came in and said, look, if you're involved, we'll be involved. Why are you doing this? I said, it's an industry suppliers magazine. We're all spending too much money advertising the same people with the same database, and we don't get the respect as service providers. So if we come together on this, we can keep the magazine rates standard. None of us need to win out of a magazine. We need to win out of, our services. And some pretty big players backed me on that one. And that magazine's
Players like?
Brian White, from the owner of Ray White, agreed to come on board and write for the magazine and contribute. Rock End, which is the largest property management software, Price Finder, came on board as well. Kaplan, Real Estate Academy. And there's a couple of others now thinking, this seems like a really clean publication that contributes back to the industry. Because when all the money passes hand, the question is, what did you contribute? And the magazine's become this great content-driven magazine. That's probably one of the best things we've ever done by accident.
If I was to be argumentative, and I'm rarely argumentative, I'd suggest it was, I was going to say opportunity. No, it was a necessity. That managing director who did not understand you when you said, this is not right, you've made a mistake, he should not be in business. And so I think there's a commercial imperative that someone tell him. And you've done something that I respect in business and personal life, and that is, you are great at this, let's celebrate that and move forward. You suck at this, find someone who can do it better or move on. We just call it transparency or just call it plain honesty. We need more of that in business, don't we?
Yeah, and these errors happen when someone's on the edge of the industry, not in the industry. Mm-hmm. So that magazine company's on the edge. They're a publication company. I'm a coach in the industry. So you're talking about my tribe, but you're from outside the tribe earning money on publications. We contribute to the tribe. So the magazine's different to us. If I had to make profit out of a magazine, that changes the landscape. But if I need the magazine to be successful because it gives to my tribe, it's a game changer, because the intention's clear. It's going to work. But the way it worked, we never budgeted just how wonderful that would be. And we actually got a client back when we were missing. Email marketing has been failing because people delete it, we're inundated with email. I got back my mature business owner, decision maker, who says, Lee, I get your magazine, I read it cover to cover in the coffee shop, I'm loving it. but it's been deleting all my emails with all the information because I'm sick of it. I'm sick of looking at screens. But the magazine taught us a massive lesson in paper-based marketing. People think it's over. It's back. Because you don't have to download it. You don't need to flip it. The battery doesn't go off.
Excuse me, did we not explain to you that Business Insider is purely digital? You terrify me because we have had this discussion internally about whether we have paper.
Oh, digital's wonderful.
Well,
but you need a balance to analogue. You really do.
And I think, yeah, it's an interesting space. Hard copy publishing, are there tricks there, or how did you do that?
I'm quite clever at talent management. So Barbara from Milestone Belnova had run magazines before, been an editor, and she was on board with us doing our other marketing. So when I said to Barbara before my big decision, do you reckon we could pull off a magazine? She goes, no, I've done it before, we're on. So I didn't try and do it internally, and we went to external talent to pull that together, which has been a great relationship for us, and she's done an amazing job with that magazine. Like, people think we've been in the magazine business forever. We haven't. But one thing the magazine works for, we got Barbara's talent, but we'll actually record an audio interview, which can take us 80 hours to edit, capture, all around the country and so forth. We then use the transcription people, which are at Erina on the Central Coast.
Another Central Coast staff.
Funny story, I went to Google saying it doesn't matter where they are in the world, I'm going to get the best one. They were at Erina. I upload my audio to the transcription people, it comes back as text. Our editors then create the articles. But when you read our magazine, there is so much depth in the content because it's overloaded versus someone asking you a couple quick questions to get some text in a magazine. We have to compress the text, and that's why the content level's been so high. But with Barbara and her team, we're able to pull it all off.
You have an opportunity to have a rant now because we are all powerful here at Business Insider, and we can change anything in business that you wish with our magic wand. What would
like
you?
The Wizard of Oz.
It is. They call me a lot of things. Never that. What could we change for you, Lee Woodward?
In what way?
In the business environment right here, right now. Do you look and say, "Wow, I wish that was different"?
You know, I don't. I actually don't look at a lot of other businesses.
The environment you're working in?
Love it. Well, interesting enough, here we are on the Central Coast. I have very few clients on the Central Coast. We're a national training organisation, but the model of company that we work for needs to be at a certain size and have a commitment to training. So there's a couple of companies that use our services here, but my team's here because we all live here. All our families are here, and you can drop your kids off to school before coming into work. That's pretty much
That's why you're here.
Yeah, the academy allows you that flexibility. We don't clock on, clock off. Autonomy is a very powerful thing. But from the business world, I actually don't require anything. Meaning, if we need something, we'll create it, we'll develop it, but we actually don't expect anything.
That's a cool way to finish. We don't expect anything. We build it. Thank you.
Thanks
for
very
your
much.
time.